Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and today we'll be having another board game review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing this game right here, Cuba, designed by Michael Rieneck and Stefan Stadler. This is published by Rio Grande Games. I believe this game is out of print, but luckily for me, I own a copy of it. I'm going to set the game up, give you a little gist of how it plays, a little bit of the rules, and then I'll share with you my final thoughts. So this is what the game looks like set up, the game of Cuba. Here we have the main player board. Let me describe a few things here. We have the resource market here, and there's three different types of resources that we're working in the game. We have what are actually called resources. You have water, brick, and wood right here, or water, stone, and wood, represented by these different colored cubes. The game's terminology actually refers to that as resources. Then we have our products, and we have three different types of products represented by these octahedron shaped pieces, wooden pieces. You have the green, which represent tobacco, I believe, and then we have the white, which represents sugar cane or sugar, and we have the orange, which represents citrus fruit. And we see it here on the market, and underneath each of these spots for the resources or for the products, you have a number which determines how much that product would cost you. Whenever you buy something, you snatch the piece and pay whatever numbers underneath worth of coin. Or if you sell a product to the market, the spot that you place the sold product on has a number underneath, and that's how much coin you would collect. So it's all about supply and demand. And finally, these bottom two spaces have the third type of resource in this game, which is referred to as goods. And we have two types of goods represented by these nice little bottled shaped red pieces here, which is the rum, right? Your strong drink. And you have these two little squared brown box shaped things, which are your cigars, right? Very Cuban. And the rules specify which spots to place them on to set the starting market. Over here on this side, you have your harbor, where you will have different cards here, different ship cards, which have a different demand. Each card has a different configuration of goods and products, a combination of the two, and different combinations and configurations of them that ship is demanding for you to fill. You're basically trying to produce all these things and then ultimately sell them for victory points. And you have three spots on the harbor, three ports, and each of them has a different number associated with it. Here on the top, we have 1, then 2, and then 3. That's how many victory points you get for each piece that you supply of its demand, right? And here, over here, we always have a face-up card that is the ship that's about to come into harbor. So you can anticipate and plan long-term to meet the demands of this ship. In the following round, these will all slide downward, whether they're completed or not. Ships will sail away if they're on the bottom spot. Any ship that is complete, no matter what spot it's on, will also sail away, and then we will slide things down and replace them accordingly. And then, of course, you have your scoring track that goes around this beautiful, gorgeous board by artist Michael Menzel. And here on the right-hand side, we have the different buildings that we will be building throughout the course of the game. And on the upper left and right-hand corner, sometimes you will find its cost. So this, for example, costs you 2 wood, right? This, for example, costs you 1 wood, 1 water, and 1 brick. And again, or stone. Those resources are represented by these squared-shaped cubes over here. Then each player also has their own player board. Each player starts with 10 coins. That's their startup capital. They also start with these 5 different character cards. This is a variable phase order role selection game, except unlike Puerto Rico, where there's a communal group of character cards. Here, each player has their own. So you could play the tradeswoman and the other player can play the tradeswoman, for example. So you have 5 of these characters. Each round, 4 of them will be played. You also start with 2 of these products of your choice and 2 resources of your choice and your own little worker meeple on your player board. Your player board starts with these spots here that indicate different goods that can be produced when you trigger these actions. You also have a warehouse here, which could be used to store products, because products in particular cannot be kept from round to round unless you use an action to place them in your storage. But the other items, which are your resources and your goods, can be stored over here in the lot. All right, also these spaces are potential places for you to put the buildings that you will be building throughout the course of the game. So let's just simulate a few rounds to see what the game looks like. So first of all, this game takes place in 4 phases. The first phase is the bills phase. And the way the bills phase works is each round you're going to turn up 4 of these bills. So you have 4 different bills in 4 different categories of types of bills. First, you have your tax bills, which usually make you demand the players pay certain goods or money, I should say, as taxes, and then they get certain benefits for accomplishing it, right? You get a certain amount of victory points for accomplishing this first group of laws here. You have duties, which refer to different resources or goods that you could turn in, also for some victory points. And then you have a third type, which are your subsidies, which benefit you for having different things in your own player area and giving you victory points accordingly. And finally, you have the different acts of the game, different little acts that affect scoring or affect the market in some way, shape, or form. So at the beginning of each round, you're going to look at these 4 bills. 2 of them will pass into laws at the end of the round, but you can know which ones you might be interested in passing into laws by knowing from the beginning of the round what's available for you. So that's the bills phase. Then we go into the action phase, where turn by turn, one by one, each player is going to play a card down, one of their 5 characters down, and trigger that special ability. So for example, you could trigger the worker. And the way the worker works is you get to, once you play this card, you get to place your worker in any of these areas here. And wherever you place them, your worker is going to trigger all the spaces that intersect with him, including the space that he's on. So all the spaces that intersect with his row and intersect with his column will be triggered. So if I put in here, for example, he would produce 1 tobacco, he would produce 2 sugars, he would produce 2 stone, and he would produce 1 water for being placed on that spot. So where you place your worker is very crucial, because you might want to get 1 resource, but it might not be the most optimal for getting the most bang for your buck. So you got to factor all those things in. Then the other player would choose their character. Let's say this player here is interested in using the tradeswoman. And the tradeswoman, some of these characters give you 2 potential abilities. The tradeswoman, the architect, and the mayor each give you 2 potential things you could do with the card. And there's spots on the board to indicate when you've used their alternative power. The main thing that a tradeswoman lets you do is she lets you buy and sell any goods at the market, right? So you can go and you can buy and sell things at the market. Alternative for her is you can get 1 resource or product from the stock. So she lets you either buy or sell the goods. Remember, in particular, the goods are the rum and the cigar boxes. So you could buy or sell them for this corresponding coin, or you can choose to use her alternative action and get any 1 resource or product from the stock, right? You could just grab any 1 resource or a product from the stock. So let's just say that this person's going to decide to go to the market, and they will spend 5 coins, because that's where the demand is at, 5 coins to acquire this cigar box in hopes of fulfilling the demand over here. So they'll grab the cigar box and keep it right there. And they're done with their turn. Now this player, back to the first player, by the way, we do have a first player marker here that will be interchanging hands throughout the game. You'll see how. So now this player decides that they want to play the architect. And the way the architect works is the architect, their main action is they get to build a building, of course, by paying the resources that that building needs. But they do have an alternative ability, which is gain 1 or 2 victory points. So let's say he plays the architect right there. He only has these 2 resources right here. Oh, hold on a second. If I would have played the worker last time, I would have triggered all this. So I would have a sugar, 2 sugars, tobacco, 2 stones, 2 more stones, and 1 more wood, and water. So, by the way, there is a limit. Actually, there's a limit. You could only produce, in particular for products, which again are these octahedron shape pieces. For these, you need to, you could only get 2, a maximum of 2, unless you're able to turn in 2 water cubes. By turning in 2 water cubes, that allows you to produce an extra product of your choice, right? Of the ones that you would normally produce. Okay, so there's that. So I do not have enough for that, so I will just keep 1 sugar, right? But I will get my 1 tobacco there. Okay, so this is all that I've got so far, and it's a lot. All right, so I'm going to do my architect action. I'm going to build, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what I can get that's really, really good, because I have a lot of stone right now and a lot of wood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this building right here. In the back, you have the name of the building, the large branch office, and it tells you what special ability the building does. So this allows you to supply a ship with any number of 1 kind of merchandise and give victory points accordingly. So basically, this allows you to supply any ship of your choice without having to use the actual action that is required to ship, which is the mayor action. So this is a way of jumping the gun and beating your opponent to the punch by just triggering your building and doing that. So when I place this building, I got to place it somewhere on one of these 12 spots here and cover up a product or a resource. So I'm going to place this right here because I don't see the need for citrus anytime soon. And that means that every time I use my worker ability in the future, if I place it on a row, in a spot that either intersects with the row or the column in which this branch office is in, then I'm able to, along with producing all the goods. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You need the foreman. The foreman, I apologize. The foreman is the way that you get to use or activate a building. But again, you don't, once you use the foreman, you don't move your worker. It has to be in a intersection where the building is in, and then you could activate it. So basically, you set up your worker, not only thinking about the resources you want, but you also have in the back of your mind, what buildings do you potentially want to trigger, including your warehouse here. Because in order to trigger your warehouse, again, you need to be either on its row or on its column. So this warehouse will not be triggered this round. Unless I want to use my foreman, because there's another thing. If you don't, you can use your foreman to activate any one building if you wanted to, instead of activating all the buildings that are actually lining up with your worker. You could just choose any one building, because otherwise resources are not kept from round to products, I should say, are not kept from round to round. Okay, so we're done with that. We built this large branch office here. We paid the corresponding resources, which is 2 stone and 2 wood. And then this player will take their action, and they're going to do the architect as well, but they're actually going to use the architect for their alternative action, which is to get 2 victory points. And the first player to use the alternative action of a character is the only player that can actually get its fullest benefit. So they're going to score 2 victory points right there. Now, the other player wanted to use the architect for their alternative action, which is too late because they already chose it for its basic action. Then this 2-point victory spot would not be available, and they would have to do it for just 1 victory point. Now we'll move on back to the first player's turn, and they are also going to do the tradeswoman here, and they're going to pay 6 coin now because the demand has gone up thanks to the other player buying one of the cigar boxes. They're going to pay 6 coins to get the other cigar box. And now the cigar market is empty. So all you could do there is sell. So this player is done with their turn. This player will get their third turn, and they're going to choose to do the worker, and they'll place their worker right here on this spot, intersecting with this column and this row. And that will produce for them a stone and a potentially two tobacco and one sugar and a water. However, again, they can only produce 2 products at a time. So they're going to have to pick 2 out of these 3 because they already have a lot of sugar. They're going to do without the sugar, and they're going to keep the tobacco. All right, so they're done with their turn. And now finally, this player is going to choose their 4th and final action. Now there's 2 really important things about the order in which you play your different roles, right? First of all, the 4th and final card that you'll actually play on your turn is the determining factor for player turn order in the next round. So whoever played the highest valued card, because each of these cards have a different ranking in Parliament. So this is a number 4. This is the highest one, the 5. They all range from 1 through 5. Whoever played the highest ranking character card will be the first player going into the next round. If there ever is a tie as far as who played the last character card, then the tie is broken furthest away from the starting player, right? Or away from the starting player going in clockwise order. So the starting player has the disadvantage of being able to continue and be the starting player for the next round. Not only is the last card you play very important, but the one card that you choose to leave unplayed is probably even more important, because the number there indicates how many start-off votes you have in Parliament. Because at the end of this round, after we're done with the Parliament phase, we're going to have, after we're done with the action phase, we're going to have the Parliament phase, which is where we reveal these votes. And then finally, we're going to have the statute phase, which is where the players, after the winner in Parliament passes 2 bills into laws, then we're going to actually implement them and see who gets benefited by these laws. So this number 5 here indicates how many start-off votes you have in Parliament. Once the players have revealed their last unplayed card and they've tallied up the numbers, each player has an opportunity to make a hidden bid, and the total of coin plus the number on their card indicates how many votes they have in Parliament, and then we'll determine who has the most votes and who gets to pass the bills into laws. So I'm actually going to choose to use the foreman here, right? Actually, no, that's no fun. I'm going to play the mayor. And with the mayor, I'm going to ship, because I have a great opportunity to get rid of lots of stuff. So you just ship anything that you can accommodate that you have. So basically, I was able to supply 4 out of the 5 items here. And because it's on the 2 victory point port, it's going to give me 2 points for each of those items for a total of 8 points. So I advance myself on the point track here by 8. Now it is the second player's turn. And again, they're faced with the same decision to choose between the foreman and the mayor. And since there's not much space here, and obviously not much benefit from going into there, they're actually going to pass on that. And they're going to go for the foreman. And with the foreman, they're able to trigger any building that's actually intersecting with their row or column, or any one building of their choice. It just so happens that the warehouse, either way, is intersecting with their column, and it's the only building that you have starting up if you don't build any. So he'll trigger the warehouse, which means he'll get to keep these goods going into the next round. Now, you don't get rid of your goods just immediately. You still need to go through the Parliament and the statute phase, and then the end of the round is triggered and any upkeep is taken care of. But he's going to be able to keep these in his warehouse, so he's all good. He's not going to have to lose them. And now this player left their foreman unplayed, and this player left their mayor unplayed. So technically this player has the advantage. Now, if they want to, they can go for a bid. So this player is going to say that he's willing to go for a bid because he really wants to push this other player and not make them get an easy one. So let's just say he puts an empty hand. The other player doesn't know it. An empty hand, no money. You can do that. And now this player is like, well, you know what? Let me throw at least one coin in to make sure. They both reveal. This player paid 1 coin for nothing because he was already in the lead, and this guy didn't pay anything. But at least he bluffed him into spending more money. So now the second player wins. So he's going to look at the 4 potential laws and determine which ones are the best for him. So the tax for 2 coins, it's pretty good because he can pay it. But the other player he knows can pay it as well because they have 3 coins. So he might think about that twice. He has the water duty. He's definitely going to pick that because he has a water in his supply. Well, actually, no. The other player also has a water in his supply. So he might want to consider this one too. Then you've got the subsidy here. And with the subsidy, for every vote in parliament, you get 1 victory point. Ooh. So this is only counting the character cards. He's going to pick this because his character card was worth 1 more vote in parliament than the other players. So that's at least going to get him 1 more victory point. And then he is going to play the Corruption Act. Actually, no, he's going to play the Tax Act. Make this guy spend his money. You got to pay 2 pesos. Now, he passes these into law. They move down here. Now, the way it works is if you're ever able to complete or fulfill the first law here, you're going to get 2 victory points. If you're able to fulfill the second law here, you're going to get 2 victory points. If you're able to fulfill both of them, you're actually going to get 5 victory points. And then again, these can score you in different ways as well. So now each player has the opportunity, if they want to, it's not mandatory actually. I wish taxes were like that here. They pay 2 coins and then they get 2 victory points for doing so. So both players will do that. They'll get their 2 victory points. And then here, the subsidy, each player for their votes in parliament, based on their character cards, will score 1 point. So this player will score 5. And this player will score 4. Alrighty. And then finally, we look at things like the last card played. This guy played the mayor. This guy played the foreman. So he will remain the starting player because his last card played was the highest card played. He will have to get rid of this tobacco because he cannot keep it. He did not use his warehouse. We would slide this down because it's not complete. It doesn't ship just yet, but it will be sliding down. And even if it doesn't complete afterward, it will ship. We replace this here. We replace the harbor ship. We discard the unvoted for bills. And we flip over a new 4 and get ready to begin a new round. And that's pretty much how the game plays. It plays through 6 rounds. It's a decent length game. I would say at about an hour for 2 players, maybe an hour and a half if you're playing with 3 or 4 players. But really, really neat if you like resource management, variable face order, and the building of cities. You know, this game does a pretty good job at that. Well, no more to say now. Let's get to my final thoughts. So this game here, Cuba, as you can see, has quite a bit going on. This is not a light game by any means. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the heaviest of games either, but it's definitely pushing more towards the heavy end than towards the light end. I have my own personal biases for this game. I bought this game as a gift, a birthday gift to my wife a few years back. This is very meaningful because my wife was born in Cuba. So I bought this along with a few other Cuban-themed games and just surprised her with that. That being said, I'm gonna try my best to be objective as I grade this game. So first of all, let's talk about theme. I'm gonna give this a B- for theme, and the reason why is, yes, it's a Euro, it's a cube pusher, but first of all, the artwork, brilliant artwork by renowned board game artist Michael Menzel. The board is beautiful. It transports you back to that setting. This is, you know, turn of the 20th century Cuba, you know, just after it's gained its independence from Spain, and it's a promising, prosperous nation with lots of aspirations and hopes, right, before the communistic revolution, which happened several decades later. So the artwork takes you to that, you know, beautiful, you know, capital city with the Capitol building, the parliament, and it looks gorgeous. You know, the different characters kind of just convey that idea of, the Caribbean, the Hispanic culture. It works, right? And just the idea of what you're doing as a person who's trying to send back goods for money or for profit, and influence the parliament and the government to pass laws that are beneficial to you. It comes across to some extent, right? At the end of the day, it is a Euro, it is a cube pusher, but the artwork and some of the gameplay aspects make you feel a little bit like you're in, early 20th century Cuba. So I will give it a B- for theme. Now let's talk about components. I am pretty satisfied with the components. I'm not usually too happy with Rio Grande Games components. But just to compare this to another game from around its time, Puerto Rico, this completely annihilates, destroys, makes Puerto Rico, eat its dirt. It's that much superior. Again, I mentioned Michael Menzel is the artist. So the art on the board, on the cards, it looks good. The pieces, the cubes, are really cool because they're shaped in nice ways, unlike your Puerto Rico cubes and resources. So you have three different types of resources. You have what they call the resources, you have your products, and you have your goods. And your goods in particular are cigar boxes and rum bottles that are shaped like rum bottles and cigar boxes. So that's cool, that's neat, right? The resources like water and wood and brick or stone, they're just, square cubes. That's fine. But again, those goods really, bring it home. So yeah, I'm going to give this an A+ for components. It's not, by Rio Grande standards, by 2007, this was published back in 2007 standards, it was good. Yes, if you compare it to the games of now, 2020, where almost every company is putting out top-notch component quality, then, sure. But that's unfair to a game that was not only published in 2007, but really hasn't been reprinted, right? And is out of print right now. So I'm going to give it an A+ for components. Very, very satisfied. Beautiful board. One of the most beautiful boards by, again, Michael Menzel. Now let's talk about gameplay. I'm going to give this game an A. It has so many different things going on, so many different mechanisms and aspects of gameplay that are all kind of meshed together. And in my humble opinion, they actually work as they're joined together. I don't know why this game has not gotten more love. It's actually decently ranked on BGG's ranking. It's somewhere, I believe, in the 500s or 600s, which for a game that's out of print and came out 13 years ago is amazing. But I never hear anybody talk about it. I don't hear any reviewers talk about it. I don't see it on people's lists. I don't see people, on Instagram. I'm very involved in Instagram. I don't see anybody talking about it in Instagram. Even its younger brother, its younger sibling, Santiago de Cuba, gets a little bit more love, even though it's lower ranked in BGG, but it's more relevant, I guess, to people. People talk about it more because it's a lighter, shorter game. This game's not too heavy. It's not too long. This game might go north of an hour, but not by much. And it gives you some nice, interesting, crunchy decisions. But you can really strategize from early on and kind of map things out. There's a lot of information that's available to you for you to process and make long-term decisions, right? It's not very tactical like some other games. Even Puerto Rico itself is a little bit more tactical. You see ships and their demands coming well ahead of time. You can prepare for them. You see how the market is being affected and manipulated, and you can prepare for that, well ahead of time. You see the potential bills that might be passed into laws, and you can prepare for that well ahead of time. You see all this information and you could process it and plan 1 or 2 rounds ahead of time for these situations. That's awesome. I love games that create those opportunities. And all the mechanisms that it happens to gel and combine together are mechanisms that individually I enjoy, that I like. And if you're able to marry them together and combine them together in a smooth way that doesn't feel convoluted, at least to me, that doesn't feel overwhelming, that doesn't feel burdensome, right? I can get behind that kind of game and really, really appreciate it. And that's why I give Cuba an A for gameplay. And then finally, we have Novelty Factor. And I'm going to give it a solid C for Novelty Factor. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, there's some really great mechanisms here, combined and all that stuff. But for the most part, a lot of this was Michael Rieneck and Stefan Stadler tapping into some of the mechanisms and features of gameplay that were already very, very popular and hot at the moment. So, for example, you have a little bit of worker placement, even though it's not classified as such here. Well, Kalis was very hot at the moment, right? And a couple other games were hot on its heels after Kalis and worker placement, right? So you have a little bit of that. You have Puerto Rico, which was back then, I think it was still #1 on BGG's ranking. So you have a lot of Puerto Rico elements here. I mean, thematically, the production of goods and shipping them into ships that are represented by cards that have a limit, right? And each of the ships have limit. Yes, he made the ships have specific demands. That's where he kind of deviated from Puerto Rico, but he still has that thematic purpose of you're producing goods and you're shipping them back, and your ships have a limit, right? They have a limit to their cargo. You have the variable phase, phase player order thing, where you have different actions that you can choose from, and that determines what's going to happen on each round. Except here, again, they made it individual to the player. Each player has the same 5 actions they could choose. So I guess you could say it's almost like Race for the Galaxy in that sense, where you have that variable phase order, but everybody can choose from the same stuff. It's not like, oh, only you can choose this and only I can choose that. So you have 5 different orders, 5 different actions you could choose, and every turn you're only going to choose 4 of them. So there's always something out of the 5 possible things that you can do that will be left undone. And the order in which you do those 4 out of 5 things is always going to be different from turn to turn. It's not always going to be the same. Same thing as in Puerto Rico, where you have that variable phase order where you have to choose one by one. But it's more Puerto Rico, again, is a communal thing where you choose the actions. Here, again, it's individual. Every player has their own cards for the different roles that they're choosing. So again, that's not unique to Cuba. It's been borrowed from Puerto Rico. You have the resource market, where everything is, the price is determined by supply and demand. The more that's in the resource market, the cheaper things are. The less that's in the resource market, the more expensive things become. This is borrowed from games like Power Grid, which I love and adore. It's borrowed by even older games like Buy Low, Sell High from Reiner Knizia, the stock market game. So this is not a unique thing to this game. You also have a political phase here where players vote for certain laws to be passed, and basically what the laws do is they benefit specific players so that they can score in certain ways. So you're going to try to pass the laws that benefit you the most and are going to bring you the most victory points. So that sounds something like what I hear Twilight Imperium has. And I'm saying that because I haven't played Twilight Imperium myself, but I've heard that Twilight Imperium has some sort of political phase where there's some sort of vote going on. And again, laws are passed, and those laws benefit some people more than others. So it sounds a little bit like that. So even that concept perhaps is not original to Michael Rieneck and Stefan Stadler. However, I will give them this. They have this nice little hacienda or farmland grid, which is a grid of, I think it's 5x4. So I think it's about 20 spots. And originally those 20 spots each of those spots has a different good or resource it produces, and those 20 spots are potential spaces for the buildings which have special benefits that you're going to be building and acquiring throughout the game, so you could plot them into those spots. The interesting thing is, this is where the worker placement aspect comes in play. You put your worker on a spot, and it triggers every spot that lines up on the row and column of that spot. I believe that sounds unique. It's Targi, which is a game that came out later, did something similar, but it was different. And with Targi, you have 2 workers, and you place one on the row and one in the column, and based on where you place them and where they triangulate, you activate an action. This is different. You just have 1 worker, and that 1 worker does not activate, one spot by triangulating, but instead it activates the entire row and column with which that worker intersects. So I think that's very neat because you're really trying to find the best spot that you can go. So you might bypass a spot where you really want to go to, but at the end of the day, it's going to give you one great thing that you really want, but some of the other things are not that beneficial to you at that moment. Perhaps there's another spot that's not going to give you anything amazing, but it's going to give you a lot of things that will be a little bit helpful for that time and place in the game. So I think that is a unique, somewhat innovative mechanism from this game. So again, this gets, all that just to say that this gets a C for novelty factor. And finally, overall grade, I'm going to give this game a solid A-. It's a really, really good game in my opinion. Again, I feel like it combines all of these aspects, all of these features of gameplay very smoothly, very well. I am sad to see that it's out of print. It would be great to see it to be reprinted, get some love. Again, it's Cuba, my wife's home country, so there is that. Take that into consideration. It's a major disclaimer. But yeah, that's it. That's my review for today of Cuba. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. Please smash that like button down below. Subscribe to our channel if you're interested in some more content like this. And I'll see you next time, guys. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.